gums at each other any chance they get. The fight clock is brought to you by Modelo. One of the greatest knockouts you'll ever see. It's time
for you to sit back, relax, and listen to a complete and fucking utter armchair expert give his completely and utterly useless opinions on the one hell of an amazing sport that is MMA.
G'day guys, hope all is well with all of you and everyone else in the MMA land who may not be listening, probably isn't. It's fine. I mean, we've been gaining a bit of traction of late, which is good. More people listening means more people engaging, and I don't know, I'm going off on a tangent, but anyway. Let's talk UFC 289. Now, I'm going to be honest, not an entirely stacked card, which you have to expect at certain points. They're not going to be able to do stacked cards for every, seeing as we've had so many stacked cards, they're not going to be able to do it all the time. So you got to kind of expect there's going to be your odd one or two that, just aren't really all that eventful. But hey, I guess it gives up and coming fighters a chance to shine. So you can't be disappointed with that, I guess. But just really and honestly, two fights I really want to see on it, being the two headliners, Oliveira versus Beneil, and Nunes versus Aldana, I think, which I did see, but I'll just look it up just to be sure. Yeah, Nunes versus Aldana, that's right. Of course, the next card, UFC 290, which is back at the T-Mobile in Vegas, is very much so more stacked with the likes of Whittaker and Volk on it. And I believe, did I read Bam Bam, I think, is on it too? I think Bam Bam could be on it, although I might be wrong. But we'll save that for the next episode because I kind of have some topics that I already sort of want to talk about for this episode, which I'll talk about after the break. But so yeah, this podcast, I do apologise, is going to be another bit of a short one, just because, like I said, there's not that much that really interests me about this card, if I'm going to be honest. But let's just get into talking about the main two fights of UFC 289. The first one being Charles Oliveira versus Beneil Dariush. I am glad Beneil is really getting the recognition he deserves, because he's gone from really being the one that should have been up there in potential title contention to just kind of being back down here. But him and Charles, that is going to be a banger. Oliveira, of course, is coming back for another shot at the belt, which was kind of interrupted a little bit by Volk at UFC 284, I was trying to remember it, the one in Perth. I was trying to remember the number. The one in Perth, of course, in February, which was another sold-out event and kind of leads into what I'm going to talk about next, but we'll save that for after. But yeah, it was kind of interrupted by Volk going up to lightweight to fight Islam, which, of course, is a controversial fight. It is going to be a good fight, though. The one going for his belt again against the one who was supposed to have the title shot. Now, who do I think is going to win out of that? That is an interesting one. I'm just going to have to say Charles, honestly. No disrespect to Beneil at all. But just, Charles on a tear, coming off that fight with Islam. Yeah, man, I hope he, I do hope he wins, because I would like to see him and Islam run it back. That would be an interesting fight. yeah, I would definitely like to see Charles get back up again. Which leads me to the bantamweight title main event of the evening, Nunes versus Irene Aldana. I swear I did read it was supposed to be Nunes Pena 3, but that must have gone wrong somewhere, so I don't know what happened there. But yeah, Nunes. Oh, it was. It was supposed to be Nunes versus Pena 3, but it got cancelled. Oh, that's a shame. That would have been interesting, actually, because we, of course, know what happened in 2021 with Pena shockingly upsetting the then and currently double champ in Nunes. And they ran it back at UFC 277, I believe it was, and Nunes beat Pena pretty convincingly for the to get the title back, to get the double champ status back, and well, this was supposed to be them running it back again, and I feel like had it been that fight, I reckon this card would be probably way more hype than it is, but unfortunately, I guess things happen in MMA, and it's not going to happen until a bit later, which is a bit of a shame, but oh well, we're still seeing the lioness Amanda Nunes in the cage, probably defending her belt, I have to say. Irene doesn't have a bad record. I think that says 14-6. But yeah, I just don't see Amanda losing that, especially after that embarrassing loss to Pena. I definitely do not see Amanda going down again, unless, of course, something else extraordinary happens, and if it does, I'm sorry and congrats in advance to Irene, and yeah, I guess that's about it, guys, really. Unfortunately, like I said, not all cards can be all that entertaining. I'm just reading here because I'm looking up on Google the card. That bloody Kai Kara France fight. Oh, that's a shame. One of my favourite fighters. Lost controversially. Lost 100 grand payday. Lost his title shot. Oh, man. Sometimes the judges just get it wrong. Hey, I guess there's some truth in what Dana said, that infamous line, "Don't ever let it go to the judges." Well, I don't think Dana has just said that, but he definitely did say it. But I'm also reading next to it. So on the left is Kai Kara France, middle 289. On the right of that is Vettori versus Cannonier. Now, not everyone is interested in that fight because a lot of people don't like Vettori. Me personally, I am. I think there definitely needs to be a number of established. The contenders need to pile back up again at middleweight. Definitely, I think. In a lot of Izzy, because that's why Izzy moved up to middleweight, because it's like, or Izzy might move up to middleweight again, you know, if there's no one there. But of course, UFC 290, Whittaker Driscoll's fighting, which I'll talk more about in the next episode, because this one's going to have way more in it that I want to talk about. But Whittaker and Driscoll, you would think the winner of that gets Izzy, and I'm kind of hoping it's Rob, to be honest, due to what I'm going to talk about next. But anyway, guys, I am going to take a quick break and listen back to this just to make sure it all recorded properly. And when I come back, there's a couple of things I want to talk about. So, a few things have happened in the world of MMA of late. One, of course, is the airing of The Ultimate Fighter, which we're not going to talk about because I haven't seen, although I have heard very mixed reviews from it. Apparently there's a lot of talking and hyping things up and not a lot of fighting, which I know a lot of people will probably be disappointed about. But on the topic of Conor, a Netflix series or miniseries / docuseries was released called McGregor Forever, which basically chronicled his life and his training and everything from basically the Khabib fight right up to now, pretty much. It, of course, chronicled the Cerrone fight, which, as I believe I've told the story on here, was the first fight me and my mate Jesse, who I've had on the podcast, the first fight me and him ever watched. And it was the first fight me and him ever watched in the sun at the Plaza Tavern, which I've also plugged on this podcast, funnily enough. And yeah, it's funny how things come in circles. But yeah, it chronicled that fight. It, of course, chronicled the second Dustin fight, and then, of course, the leg break, which leads up to everything that's happened since. And yeah, man, I watched all of it. And yeah, man, what can I say? It was very interesting. A lot of interesting insight into what happened pre and post the Khabib fight, certainly. Things I definitely didn't know before. Did not know going into that Conor was injured, for one. But also, of course, that backstage chat with Dana after the fight, like where Conor pretty much probably showed as much humility as I've ever seen him show, other than maybe in the second Dustin fight or before it. He said basically he beat me and that's that, which you got to give it to him, because before that infamous brawl, which everyone now knows that fight for, Conor was beat, you got to say that. And he was beat in a way that he wasn't expected to be beat either, which, he was expecting the takedown, and Khabib came with a pretty solid shot and just submitted him. But yeah. So yeah, it was thoroughly interesting. Of course, everyone knew the leg break was coming. I couldn't watch it. I watched that live. It was a pretty gruesome injury. It of course revealed that Conor was in fact injured in training before that fight, and it probably contributed to his leg break. Of course, it took me back to the second Dustin fight, where I actually forgot that he was sort of somewhat injured during that fight, during the leg, due to the leg kick checks. He walked out of that on crutches. I forgot about that until I watched it again. Which all, that plus the training injury probably ultimately contributed to his broken leg and, where he's at now. But yeah, other than that, was thoroughly interesting, and I would definitely recommend anyone interested in the journey of Conor to watch it. But the other thing I would like to talk about is the fact that the UFC announced some weeks ago they're coming back down under. UFC 293 is going to be in Sydney, and I, for one, cannot effing wait. Oh my lord. As I said, the Whittaker-Driscoll fight at the next card, UFC 290, is going to determine who next goes for the middleweight strap, and I for one hope it's Rob, and because if it is, there's a lot of talk that it will probably be on that card, Izzy versus Rob 3. I hope also, and I can't see any reason why there wouldn't be, that Volk can end up on that card too. Of course he'd want to fight in his hometown if he can. Same as Bam Bam, which I just realised after I listened back to that I may have got Bam Bam being on 290 confused, because he was actually in the advertising for UFC 293. So if he's not on 290, I definitely hope he's on 293. But I actually kind of want to go to that, not going to lie. It is going to be expensive and time consuming for me, because I'm obviously from Melbourne, and it's going to mean a drive up and accommodate or a fly up. and accommodation and blah, 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 but I really want to try and go to that, especially if Izzy Rob 3 and Volk are on it. I definitely want to try and go to that because Perth was an electric atmosphere and it kind of made me jealous that I didn't go. But yeah, I should have actually said that what I didn't know prior to, I think, 284, this might have been announced, was that prior to Chris Minns, the Labour leader in Sydney and the now Premier, being elected, UFC and or MMA was actually illegal in Sydney, which I didn't know. I thought that it had been made legal in Sydney because I swear I heard of UFC events in Sydney before, but obviously it wasn't. And now, one of Chris Minns' election policies was that he would, like Dan Andrews here did before him, and we've obviously had 3 UFC events here, he would legalise MMA, and he obviously has done that because now the UFC has signed a deal with the New South Wales government to have, I think, 3 events there over the next 4 years. So, yeah, the land down under has got some things to look forward to for MMA. Definitely, the UFC can see, and rightly so, that there's a huge fan base of it here, and they're going to reward us for that, especially given we were starved of it through the COVID years. We were kind of teased with it through 2019, and now from 2020 on it stops, and now we're back, baby. Things are back to normal, and I, for one, cannot fucking wait for it. I hope there's way more events here to come. I hope that deal is honoured, which I can't see any reason why it would not be honoured. And I also hope, I really hope, that we down here in Melbourne and even Brisbane get one, but especially we down here in Melbourne, because believe me, even if I do get to go to this Sydney event, which gee, I hope I do, because of course Perth was sold out pretty bloody quickly, but even if I do get to go to this Sydney event, I would still love to go to one in Melbourne at Marvel, because I'm still to this day sad that I haven't been able to go to one yet. That would be friggin' awesome, but yeah, cannot friggin' wait for that. Anyway, guys, it's coming up to nearly 17 minutes, and I got to mix and master this podcast so it can be out by 6 a.m. But anyway, guys, I hope you all enjoyed the fight and enjoyed me talking about it and enjoyed all of what I've talked about in the lead up to the end of this podcast, or will enjoy it when UFC 293 comes. Hope you all enjoy UFC 290 too, because that's going to be a stacked card and determine a lot. Of course, there'll be another episode before that fight card comes. But yeah, anyway, till next time, guys, take it easy.